you're watching this on playback, I hope you're doing well. It's not being confirmed what is going to happen to Daniel Ricciardo and his actual future in Formula One in terms of the rest of this season and 2025. But my goodness me, this is an absolute mess. Red Bull have completely screwed this up. I don't even know what to say. Honestly, now, after the Belgium Grand Prix, it was supposed to be the case that, well, there were rumours that Daniel Ricciardo was going to replace Sergio Perez at Red Bull. But then Horner came out and reassured Perez that he was going to remain at the Red Bull senior squad. A lot of it partly due to the huge amount of money that Perez brings from Mexico. And really, that's left a huge question mark over Daniel Ricciardo when his future with RB, because let's be honest, he only decided to join the junior team in the hopes that he would outpace Tsunoda, score more points than Tsunoda, and prove himself worthy of a return to the Red Bull senior squad. However, Perez then had a great race at Baku where, had it not been for his collision with Carlos Sainz, Perez could have been on the podium. And hello there, I hope you're doing well. I mean, all I can say is, I think ever since Perez showed himself capable of being able to outpace Max like he did at Baku, and show himself to be, capable of occasionally being fast again, I think Red Bull obviously have also conceded the fact that they have already lost the Constructors' title to McLaren, and that they would rather focus the team all around Max Verstappen again, with, of course, not only Adrian Newey having already left the team, but Hannah Smith and Jonathan Wheatley about to depart the Red Bull camp, two massive figures in the strategy and management organisation of the team. And there's been rumours that a lot of Red Bull employees have been trying to look for work elsewhere outside of Red Bull. So, really, I think Daniel Ricciardo himself has been wondering, does he really want to remain at RB and just pick up his wages, knowing that there's no entryway back into the Red Bull team, knowing that Perez is pretty much going to remain at Red Bull because he's got money and he knows the car and he's been at the team for 3 years now, whilst Ricciardo obviously left Red Bull back in 2018, which I've got to say, what a mistake it was for Daniel Ricciardo to leave Red Bull 6 years ago, because since then he's only had one race win. I mean, he couldn't get his head around the brakes and the steering at both Renault and McLaren, and then to top things off in 2022 with the new ground effect regulations, the FIA brought in smaller, weaker tyres into the front tyres into the sport, meaning that obviously Daniel Ricciardo's ability to respond to the front end has just been diminished. And for a guy who likes to be able to carry a lot of speed into the corners and brake very progressively afterwards, it's just not working out. And I don't think it's so much the car design that was the problem at McLaren. I think it was more Ricciardo was probably shell-shocked by the fact he was so easily outpaced by Lando Norris, and I think that left him at crossroads and really at something of what I would describe as an F1 midlife crisis, in that he just didn't know how to deal with the raw speed and the talent of Lando Norris, who, apart from that race at Monza, where obviously Daniel won for the 8th time in his career, and frankly, probably the last time in his career as well, it's just, you gotta realise, I think Lando Norris completely demoralised him. Not Ricciardo just began to look very disinterested with McLaren, with, of course, I think the likes of Zach Brown probably talking more about revolving the team's future around Lando Norris. And then, of course, the whole Oscar Piastri saga broke out, where, of course, Alpine, having lost Alonso to Aston Martin, quickly announced that Piastri was going to drive for them. And then Piastri and Mark Webber both came on social media and immediately announced that they hadn't signed a contract to race for Alpine in 2023. And of course, it turned out to be, after reassurances from Zach Brown to the media that Daniel Ricciardo's seat was safe for the future, Oscar Piastri was announced as Daniel Ricciardo's replacement at McLaren for 2023, which I think really, in Daniel Ricciardo's head, I think he was so humiliated by the way McLaren went about, the way they got rid of him. I mean, I know some people won't feel sorry for Ricciardo because obviously he walked away from a race-winning seat at Red Bull. He walked away from #1 status at Renault, where, of course, he was absolutely battering Esteban Ocon. And then on top of that, I mean, since his return to RB, he's been okay. He got 4th place in the sprint race in Miami, of course, but then in the main race itself, he dropped out of the points. And then he scored points again at Montreal, which was obviously one of his strongest tracks on the calendar, but really, 2023 and 24, I've seen very few particularly great performances for the Honey Badger, obviously also known in some circles as the Money Badger, for joining Renault, because obviously they waved a huge brown envelope at him, and he was like, yeah, give me that cash. But of course, with the pandemonium of the 2021 Drivers' Championship between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, I know a lot of people will probably laugh at this, but Daniel Ricciardo could have easily been in the hunt for the championship fight that year. With all the shenanigans with the FIA, not really knowing how to act between Hamilton and Verstappen every time they went wheel to wheel and hit each other. Hamilton smashing Verstappen up through that Silverstone, Verstappen getting hit by Bottas at Hungary, Hamilton, and then of course Hamilton getting smashed off the road by Verstappen at Monza. There were quite a few opportunities for Daniel Ricciardo to capitalise upon. Silverstone, Hungary, what else? Monza, which of course he won for McLaren that year. Turkey, which was won by Valtteri Bottas. Another race that could have been Ricciardo's. Baku, when of course, I'm trying to think, was that the race when Verstappen had a tyre puncture? Yeah, and then of course Lewis Hamilton overshot the restart. That could have been another Daniel Ricciardo win. You can't realise, by the time was after Turkey, I mean, Ricciardo could have easily had 5 race wins in 2021, and then of course, had he 30 points of both Hamilton and Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, you never know. I mean, because obviously we know Verstappen and Hamilton collided once again at Interlagos, Saudi Arabia. You've got to realise, yes, obviously, by the end of 2018, it was becoming obvious that Verstappen was the faster driver than Ricciardo, but you have to realise by 2021, Ricciardo would have continued driving for a team that he knew, that he knew the car, he knows the engineers, he knows the setup, he knows what to do in a race situation. I mean, you have to realise we have had seasons where, like, Eddie Irvine came within 3 points of becoming 1999 world champion. Felipe Massa was a point away from becoming the champion in 2008. Then we had that crazy season in 2010 where, of course, Mark Webber, Alonso, Vettel and Hamilton were all in with a shout of winning the championship. I think the first time in F1's history there were 4 drivers in a championship finale. I'm just saying 2021 could have been the year that we could have seen Daniel Ricciardo win the championship had he stayed at Red Bull. It was a year where, I mean, Bottas was really now not really, well, was clearly getting completely exposed for the sort of driver he really was. Not very quick and not particularly the most spectacular nor consistent. Thank you to whoever's liked the video. And truth be told, yeah, I mean, with Perez struggling to get up to speed at Red Bull due to the fact that it was obviously not his team, the fact that Red Bull had already got rid of Gasly and Albon because of their lack of ability to come to grips with Max's insane performance improvements. I have to say it, Daniel Ricciardo would have been in his 8th year at Red Bull, and I have to say it, I do think Daniel Ricciardo privately probably does regret leaving Red Bull because back in 2018, because of course, I don't know how much that extra pay packet that he received at Renault and McLaren has actually helped him in real life. Like, has it helped him gain better property deals? Has it helped him, I don't know, buy better assets that give him more money? I mean, with the amount of money he's achieved, he had already achieved in F1 by the time he left Red Bull by the end of 2018. Like, was the extra money really worth leaving the team and sacrificing any chances Ricciardo had of winning a world championship? And I think there probably is a part of Daniel Ricciardo that does bitterly regret leaving Red Bull when he did, because, you know, whilst Max Verstappen's height was obviously improving rapidly in those years at Red Bull, I mean, you have to realise Ricciardo obviously was far more capable than someone like Gasly, Albon or Perez in terms of actually ever beating Max Verstappen in a straight fight. And here we are today, 2024. You know, the way Dan Ricciardo spoke in that interview to Lawrence Barretto on F1 TV, you could just tell the end was coming for it has pretty much come for Ricciardo. Like, even if Red Bull decide to allow Ricciardo to do one more race at Kota, it will be a farewell weekend. It will just basically be the whole weekend with, like, the whole paddock paying tribute to Daniel Ricciardo. I think, you know, I mean, if Daniel Ricciardo does get one more race, I mean, the whole Kota weekend is just going to be full of Daniel Ricciardo tribute everywhere around the paddock. And so, frankly honest, I don't really know. To be honest, I don't know whether it's really worth allowing Daniel Ricciardo to have a farewell race at Kota. I mean, I think Red Bull surely, like, if they really want to get Liam Lawson up to speed, then they should really allow Liam Lawson to compete at Kota. Because, let's be honest, is Daniel Ricciardo going to score points there? It's honestly a big fat no from me. I mean, Red RB have fallen off quite a fair bit in terms of the Constructors' Championship and their general performance in the pecking order. I think, you know, Haas, I think, have overtaken them in the past few races. So have Williams. it's not really worth keeping Ricciardo at this point. And I know that sounds so harsh, but to any Daniel Ricciardo fans, but he is just clinging on for dear life at that team. It's not fun to watch. And to be honest, I mean, if you're just watching right now, I think please watch the playback, because I've said everything I wanted to say about Ricciardo. You know, 8 career wins over the course of 14 years. It's nothing to be scoffed at. Ricciardo has earned his fortune over the years. But truth be told, he's 35 years old now. He has deteriorated so dramatically over the past 4 years. You know, considering 4 years ago he was absolutely doing the business for Renault. You know, getting podiums at Nürburgring and Imola, which are tracks that F1 had not raced at for quite a long time. You know, helping destroying Ocon. And it has to be said, you know, but yet in his last 2 stints at McLaren and the junior Red Bull team, Daniel Ricciardo has not given the team, those 2 teams, anything extra in terms of what another young driver like Liam Lawson could have given them, or Oscar Piastri. Absolutely nothing. And it's a really harsh assessment, but it's a results-driven business. Like, there should not be any room for sentimentality, I'm afraid. Even with an affable character like Daniel Ricciardo, I mean, that guy should be racing in IndyCar or NASCAR by now and doing like occasional TV jobs for F1 and Sky Sports and Fox and Australia Fox Sports. Not embarrassing himself like this, getting slapped on a weekly basis by a decent driver in Yuki Tsunoda, who, truth be told, I don't see that Yuki Tsunoda being anything remotely close to world champion material, despite his own obvious improvements in performance. I mean, obviously, I did say on someone else's stream that at least Kimi Raikkonen and Sebastian Vettel knew when to quit, because Kimi Raikkonen, despite the fact he was obviously miles past his best, for Sauber, he was a huge improvement upon likes of Marcus Ericsson, Giovinazzi, Felipe Nasser, Gutierrez, Sutil, and maybe a couple of others I could mention. And, you know, Kimi helped Sauber finish 8th in 2019, 8th in 2020, when, of course, they had one of the slowest cars on the grid, and then, of course, finishing 9th in 2021, miles ahead of the struggling Haas team. You know, and whilst, yes, some might say Sauber should have got 8th place, well, you've got to realise, obviously, Sauber shot themselves in the foot with reliability problems, bad pit strategies, terrible pit stops which saw Kimi get slowed down, or Giovinazzi given a wrong tyre. And then, of course, as for Vettel, again, he definitely produced results that I don't think many drivers available to Aston Martin would have got in their in what Vettel did in 2021. Like, thank you for the second like. You know, getting podiums at Baku and, of course, Hungary, which, of course, he got disqualified from for having an underweight fuel tank. And, of course, the second half of 2022, where Vettel was absolutely annihilating Lance Stroll, destroying Lance Stroll. And I think, had it not been for the fact that Alfa Romeo got 5th place at Imola, I think Aston Martin ended up finishing 7th, narrowly missing out on 6th place due to countback, due to, of course, Bottas getting 5th place at Imola for the Alpha boys. Still waiting for the green light. Ugh. I don't know. Well, I mean, are you talking about whether Red Bull have confirmed Daniel Ricciardo's departure? I don't know whether they've confirmed it yet, but It is a really strange one. I don't know where, like, the team has handled the rumours about Daniel Ricciardo's potential departure very poorly, shockingly bad. Like, you know, just like, Christian Horner has had to deal with the departures of Adrian Newey, Jonathan Wheatley, Tanner Smith, and then of course he's got what's his name, Jos Verstappen and Herbert Marko whispering all sorts of nonsense in his ear, and the Red Bull Corporation are just making a mess out of. I don't know. It seems like they're really sort of embarrassed about the whole fact that if they are going to drop Daniel Ricciardo now, they have to make a news conference, and they're going to have to take a lot of stick from Daniel Ricciardo fans about the fact he's going to be leaving the sport so dramatically, so suddenly, just after only about 6 weeks after the fact that everyone thought that Daniel Ricciardo was actually on course to return to the senior team due to how bad Sergio Perez has been this year. Oh yeah, I saw that photo of Christian Horner and Zach Brown on the same plane together on the way back from Singapore back to Europe. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what's going on there. But it does prove that I think Red Bull very cynically brought Daniel Ricciardo back as a publicity stunt so that they could change AlphaTauri's name to a joke name like RB, which is supposed to stand for Racing Balls. Although it also reminds me a lot of RB Leipzig's name, which is apparently Rasenball Sports or something stupid. As the guy on Monopoly would say, he did well. Yeah, he did well, but you can't help but get the feeling with Ricciardo that it could have been a bit more. He could have been in contention to win the 2021 championship had he remained at Red Bull, with the absolute chaos going on between Hamilton and Verstappen in quite a few races that year. Oh yeah, the Thai owners had their own problems. Oh right, the Thai owners within the Red Bull Corporation had a son who killed a police officer in a Ferrari. Blimey, what is going on at Red Bull? Crazy team. Like, I have to say this, like, I honestly can't stand, like, when people ask me, who would I rather prefer, like, if you forced me to pick one team over the other, I would happily pick Ferrari over Red Bull, because the way Red Bull go about their business in general, like, yes, they're very lucky that they've had Adrian Newey design so many championship winning cars for them, but their driver management just sucks. It just sucks. Mark Webber. Oh my god, I don't even want to go back and think about him. Like, apparently there was that weekend at Silverstone in 2010 where Vettel crashed his car and had to replace the front wing, and he took away Mark Webber's front wing, which was the newest upgrade for the front wing. So Mark Webber ended up winning the race with the older front wing, and Mark Webber's response was, not bad for a number 2 driver. Daniel Ricciardo to WEC, yeah. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo, I think, I don't know. I mean, let's be honest. Daniel Ricciardo has basically been used as a marketing prop by Red Bull to bring Visa and Cash App as sponsors for the rebranded RB team. That was what I was going to say. That is a hard pill to swallow for someone who supports Kimi. All right, okay. First ballot for Hall of Very Good in Formula One. Well, I would put Juan Pablo Montoya ahead of Ricciardo in terms of Hall of Very Good. Of course, I've done a poll here saying, would Daniel Ricciardo, Lando Norris winning the 2024 title be worse than JV in 97? And looks like 5 people voted no. So, I mean, I think I might do another poll. I mean, if I don't get enough votes today, then I might carry it on to tomorrow's poll, which is going to be about another driver instead of Ricciardo. But I don't know, honestly, Daniel Ricciardo, thanks for the memories, but you've definitely should have left after 2022 because you've just been used as a marketing prop. Of course, there's also been like a few podcasts Daniel Ricciardo has gone on in recent years where he's been talking to some very odd characters, shall we say. I don't know why Daniel Ricciardo keeps going on these weird podcasts with some really odd characters from America. Like, I think probably Ricciardo, it does seem to be his interest from it has kind of waned a lot in Formula One. Thank you for 3 likes. All the support is welcome here at Crystal Racing. I know there's been recent arguments on Twitter about, or X, about whether Montoya or Ricciardo were a bad driver, but for me, it's got to be Montoya. Like, Montoya only lasted 5 years in Formula One, but my goodness me, was he a real spectacle to watch. But, you know, Ricciardo, I have to say, that manager, I think, obviously, when he, shortly after he signed a deal to join Renault in 2019, he sacked the manager who did the deal with him because I think Ricciardo very quickly regretted the decision to join Renault, knowing that, as we have seen since their transition into Alpine and the way Fernando Alonso and Oscar Piastri left the team, Renault will never go. Renault do not have the resources nor the management to become a championship-winning team, and frankly, I doubt they will be able to transform themselves into a top team come 2026 when we get the rules reset. Hence why Piastri and Alonso left when he did, and you know, whilst joining McLaren, I think, was actually the correct move on Ricciardo's part, knowing that McLaren do have a platform far, far better than what Renault or Alpine have. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think Ricciardo was just completely shell-shocked when he realised what an amazing driver Lando Norris actually could be. Sometimes I criticise Jim's career, or Juan Pablo Montoya's career, but he was better than Ricciardo, yeah. The problem with Montoya is that his attitude completely destroyed what he could have achieved, like apparently eating too many burgers, getting involved in a motorbike crash where apparently he decided to cover it up by saying he injured his shoulder in a tennis match. Yeah, right. Yeah, Mark Webber obviously used his experience of being screwed over by people who told him to go and join Williams by turning around and saying, yeah, this Alpine team reminds me of what it was like when I used to race for Williams back in the day. And then, of course, Mark Webber then had to go back to what was essentially the rebranded Jaguar team when they got bought out by Red Bull. So that's why, obviously, they left Alpine, and it was very much the correct decision because Alpine, if it wasn't for the fact that Williams and Sauber are really poor teams, they would probably be at the bottom of the table this year. But thankfully, due to the fact that Williams and especially Sauber are such terribly ran teams, Alpine have been an absolute embarrassment this season. And it's only thanks to the fact they have Gasly and Ocon racing for them that has also saved their blushes because they're both clearly an upgrade on the likes of Sargeant, Bottas, and especially Zhou Guan Yu. Like, oh my god, Zhou Guan Yu, like, that guy just epitomizes the severe corruption and the disgracefully bad way that the Chinese Communist Party run their country because, you know, Yi Fei was a great junior driver in the junior ranks, winning the French Formula 4 title, the Euro Formula Open Series 4 years ago, and all he got was a move to the Porsche GT sports car program, where, of course, after a few good performances there, along with, of course, being teammates to Robert Kubica in an LMP2 program, he earned to move to the Ferrari hypercar program. And I think there's no questions here. Like, he should have been the one who should have got a seat in Formula One, not Zhou Guanyu, but for some reason it does seem as if because of oh my god, sorry, what am I doing? Sorry, that poll needs to be deleted. I didn't realise that I forgot to actually type the drivers' names in properly instead of leaving it to yes or no. There we go. There we go. Oh yeah, Kubitz made a move to obviously the Ferrari AF course program. Of course, I know why I've redone the poll, but I don't read. But because I pressed yes or no, I think that's just left as a mess. And what a sad end for Daniel Ricciardo. So if you want to know what's going on, yeah, still no news about whether Ricciardo will leave out RB. I mean, it seems to be the team are very much committing to Sergio Perez for 2025. And with that news, I think it's pretty safe to say with, of course, Red Bull obviously having Liam Lawson still sitting on the bench, not doing a lot, and looking for a seat in the sport for 2025. It looks really bad for Ricciardo, and I think, honestly, it's sad for Ricciardo because, yeah, I think in terms of what he was capable of doing at Red Bull, at his peak, he was a better driver than what Perez has ever really been in Formula One. Like, the best version of Daniel Ricciardo is easily the best version of Sergio Perez. Easily. But Daniel Ricciardo, thanks to bad advice and some dodgy agent of his, decided to join Renault, who, of course, I mean, that manager, I think, picked up on the fact that Ricciardo was not happy with his situation at Red Bull when, of course, Ricciardo had that collision with Max Verstappen at Baku 6 years ago, which, of course, caused that infamous safety car that saw Roman Grosjean crash out, and then Sebastian Vettel overshoot the start and allowed Kimi Raikkonen to finish second behind Lewis Hamilton in an absolutely crazy race. I mean, that race should have been won by Vettel, but God. I mean, Vettel deserves another video of his own, to be honest, because let's be honest, I don't think Sebastian Vettel ever really lost that much of his speed. I just think the situation at Ferrari just made him a lot more mentally fragile, and it just made him more susceptible to making errors because he just felt so much pressure and responsibility to not only cover for the poor car development, but also the shenanigans within the Ferrari management and the expectations of Sebastian Vettel bringing the title back home to Maranello when the team were just... Yeah, I mean, I'd say it again. Let me say again, the best version of Daniel Ricciardo is the best version, is better than, is superior to any version of Sergio Perez. Like, Sergio Perez finished 10th in Singapore, and the thing is, it's got to the point where none of us are really that particularly outraged or disgusted by Perez anymore because, like, he's not that much better than someone like Pierre Gasly or Alex Albon at all. Like, he's just doing the best he can. And I think the only other benefits you have with Sergio Perez in the Red Bull team is not only would he not challenge Max Verstappen, but he's also quite good at car development and setup advice and, like, giving tips and pointers in terms of how to develop the car properly. Hence why I think Christian Horner and Marco are willing to tolerate Perez and his poor performances because, you know, yeah, you can have a driver like Max Verstappen winning all the races you want, but the thing with Max Verstappen, just like Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso, is that because of their ability to drive around problems, they are not very good at detecting the problems with the car. Hence why you always need a good second driver, like whether it be someone like Rubens Barrichello, Giancarlo Fisichella, Trulli, Massa, Raikkonen, or in the case of Verstappen, obviously, Sergio Perez, like, that's the best recipe for success. But for some reason, throughout most of 2023 and the first half of 2024, Red Bull have just completely ignored whatever has come out of Perez's mouth when it comes to criticizing the state of the car, because they just look at Max Verstappen and think, yeah, we can keep winning all the time. But problem is, you need a second driver who can update you in terms of car problems, detect car issues. Does it have too much understeer? Is the car bottoming out too much on the straights? Is it too twitchy at the rear end? Does it produce too much oversteer? Is the steering wheel too stiff? Are the brakes working? Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with Perez and Fisichella, like, the reason why I never became a Sergio Perez fan is because his performances just at Force India just reminded me exactly of what Fisichella was like at Jordan and Benetton, in that, yeah, it looks extremely impressive compared to what you get in the midfield, which is drivers like, I don't know, Kevin Magnussen, or when Fisichella was racing, I think there used to be Pedro Diniz, Pedro De La Rosa, or Felipe Massa. They're not, I mean, they're good drivers, but they're not impressive drivers. And of course, in Perez's case, obviously, he's also been up against the likes of Roman Grosjean, Kvyat, Albon. They're not going to set the world alight. And frankly, beating those type of drivers is it's just basically a glorified Formula 1.5 battle in the midfield. That's all it is. That's all Fisichella and what's his name? Fisichella and Perez ever were, like continuously winning Class B in Formula 1, the Class B fight in Formula 1, which, yeah, it's all well and good, but, I mean, the same can be said for someone like Hulkenberg, who, yeah, I know Hulkenberg's kind of like a modern-day version of Trulli in that he's so quick in qualifying, but, again, winning the Class B fight is worth a pittance. Like, we've got Fernando Alonso out here, in his 40s, winning the Class B fight in the midfield. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Alonso has been absolutely fantastic, but I think it does speak volumes about how average some of the drivers are in the past 5 years, since the likes of Grosjean, Kubica, and a couple of other names have left the sport, like Vettel and Raikkonen. The tiebreaker for me has to be Sakir 2020 and Monaco 2022. Oh yeah, Perez's best choice. I mean, as for Daniel Ricciardo, though, compare that to Daniel Ricciardo winning the 2018 Shanghai Grand Prix. Now, that performance is way better than anything Sergio Perez has achieved in 13 years of Formula 1. Way better. What else? Oh, yeah, Ricciardo hang on at Monaco with that sick Red Bull, with the MGUK having completely destroyed itself after 10 laps, and successfully held Sebastian Vettel up throughout the race. I mean, obviously, I know it's Monaco, but still, brilliant levels of concentration to concentrate that hard for well over an hour and a half of a broken car. Braking, making it so hard for Vettel to overtake him. What else? Oh, yeah, winning at Hungary and Belgium back in 2014, where, of course, the two Mercedes ran into issues, and Ricciardo, in the last 5 laps of Hungary, overtook the likes of Alonso, and I can't even remember who else he overtook. Did he overtake? Oh, yeah, he overtook Rosberg. Great win that was at Hungary that day. Then, of course, winning at the 2016 Malaysian Grand Prix, which, of course, was handed to him because Hamilton's car blew up, and he had a great fight with Max Verstappen, showing him who was boss at the time. Then, of course, the win at Baku 2017, which, if I'm going to be honest, was gifted to Ricciardo. Like, he had that amazing, Like, don't get me wrong, there was that amazing late braking maneuver into turn one at Baku where you overtook Massa, Stroll, and a couple of other cars, like massive late diving maneuver. And I have to say it, and as much as Perez has done an okay job at Red Bull, nothing he's ever done in the sport has ever matched up to the best performance of Ricciardo. Not really close, to be honest. I mean, yeah, Perez was great at picking up podiums on a regular basis whenever one of the top cars ran into trouble, like 2018 Baku, when, of course, the two Red Bulls, Vettel and Bottas, had their issues. But, I mean, Bottas could have won at Baku that day. That's crazy. That is crazy. Oh, yeah, 2016 Monaco, when, of course, Ricciardo was undone. Ricciardo got screwed over by that slow pit stop where the Red Bull mechanics forgot to bring the tyres out. Yeah, another Red Bull moment of stupidity, like. And for me, as a man who used to support Mark Webber and is currently a fan of Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon, I think, you know, compared to Ferrari, like, I think Red Bull only ever had like a very brief period where they had like an equal driver policy, which only lasted for about 3 years. And that was roughly around between like 2014 to 2017, where they had like Ricciardo with Vettel. Then Vettel got replaced by Kvyat, and then Verstappen. And the only reason why Ricciardo was the default team leader during that time. I mean, I think with Verstappen coming in, they couldn't really give Ricciardo #1 status, knowing the potential Max had to become one of the best drivers the sport has ever seen. I mean, but, you know, compare that to Ferrari. Oh, Piastri, that's interesting. Can be an anagram. There's no letter way. No. The only way Piastri's name can be an anagram of A Prost to II if you put O Piastri, O for Oscar. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with Red Bull, is that they have won like 7 drivers' championships and 6 constructors' championships, which is more than Ferrari's grand total of 0 drivers and 0 constructors titles since 2009. And the fact that, let's be honest, 2018 was pretty much the only season that we've seen Ferrari have a car that was arguably, potentially a championship winning car. I know people still give Vettel and Raikkonen a bit of stick for that, but really, I think we all know that as Ferrari fans, that Ferrari's management is atrociously bad. Domenicali, Arrivabene, Bonotto, Vassar, they've... Oh, God, forget it. They're all... I wouldn't say they're rubbish, but they clearly... It just didn't seem to be able to get the team working in the right direction and be able to persuade the best engineers and mechanics to come to the Scuderia. Although, of course, I think, well, as many people have actually said things like Adrian Newey could have worked for Ferrari. I think the reason why Adrian Newey has never joined Ferrari is due to the fact that, due to what happened at the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, I think Adrian Newey has always had it in the back of his head that if he ever went to join Ferrari, that he would potentially be forced to face some sort of court case over what happened at Imola at that weekend back in like the back end of April. I mean, I know that got dark, but as for Daniel Ricciardo, I mean, who knows? Who knows what could have happened if he stayed at Red Bull until 2021? Like the chaos and anarchy between Hamilton and Verstappen. You know, Verstappen being crashed out at Silverstone, Verstappen being smashed into by a drunk Bottas at the start, Hamilton nearly losing his neck at Monza, problems with both drivers at Turkey where Bottas won, problems with both drivers at Baku where Perez won. Yeah, I mean, by Turkey, like, Ricciardo could have had like 5 or 6 race wins by that point, and I'm pretty certain Ricciardo would have been like, yeah, I'm in this championship fight. Don't you dare stand in my way. I'm going to do what Kimi Räikkönen did in 2007 and come out as the unfancied underdog and win this championship. And then once I get this championship win, I'm just going to go and be a mercenary and join any team that's willing to pay me a huge sum of cash. And then I can retire. And then I can retire as a world champion, knowing that even if I drive like a bum, I can tell everyone I'm a world champion. With 2021, Perez probably did more in certain races to help Max. Bottas helped Hamilton at Turkey, Monza, and Brazil. Did Bottas help Hamilton at Monza? That's a bit of a strange one because, I mean, did Hamilton... Oh, yeah, I think Bottas might have held up Max for a couple of laps, but... And maybe at Brazil, but you have to realise by Brazil, Mercedes clearly had the faster car again. I mean, Perez, okay, I know he held Hamilton up at the last race in Abu Dhabi, and I think he also held Hamilton up at a couple of other races in the second half of the year, but I don't know, it is a really tough one, but I just think Ricciardo probably would have won the mind games against Hamilton and Verstappen in 2021 had he had the chance to get into championship contention, because when you consider the number of collisions and problems Hamilton and Verstappen had in 2021, Ricciardo could have definitely been in a championship hunt. And that's not me like being a fanboy of Ricciardo or anything. That's me being very objective when you think about the number of times Ricciardo pounced and took advantage of another driver's problems between 2014 and 2018. Beating Verstappen. Oh, yeah, Bottas beat Verstappen in a couple of sprints. Yeah, but the thing is, the sprints only gave out 3 points for a win back then, 2 for second, and then 1 point for third. So, very, very minimal in terms of the fact that Verstappen ended up winning the championship by about 7 or 8 points due to, of course, what Michael Massey did. I think what Michael Massey did at Abu Dhabi helped Verstappen out more than, well, one. Okay, Ferrari vice chairman is... Oh, right. Enzo Ferrari adopted Pero. Okay, so what's it? Turns out to be Pero Ferrari was the illegitimate... was an illegitimate child that was born out of wedlock, and that Enzo's wife actually cheated on him. That's interesting. That, okay, I mean, I'd go and read up about that. I mean, that's an interesting story, but okay, I never expected to see a comment like that on a stream like this, but that's interesting. Of course, well, Enzo Ferrari died before I was born, so, you know, I know there's been rumours that I'm really, really old, but I was born quite a few years after the death of Enzo Ferrari, thankfully. Yeah, obviously the poll has decided that Ricciardo is clearly the far better driver than what Montoya ever was, which is interesting because I remember some great performances with Pablo Montoya. You know, I think he set the lap record at Monza before, of course, Kimi broke it in 2018 with the old school V10 BMW Williams screaming down the straight. Love that sound so much. Of course, I think he was in contention to win the 2003 championship until, of course, the FIA came down with a ruling where they said that Michelin's tyres were too big, the front tyres were too large post-race scrutineering, despite the fact there was nothing in the regulations at the time that said that your tyres had to be a certain width post-race. But of course, Ferrari, realising that Michael Schumacher was going to lose the championship, turned around and started begging the FIA for favours again. And of course, it also costed Kimi Räikkönen the championship. Okay, fair enough. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, Oh, right, Enzo lived a double life. Yeah, a lot of these, yeah, but you gotta realise a lot of big corporate CEOs all live double lives. Like, even in this day and age, they still do it. It's nothing new, to be honest. It's not really worth being that sad about or that outraged about. But what was I going to say? Yeah, Montoya, had it not been for like an engine failure at Austria and of course a hydraulic failure at Japan, Montoya could have actually been a world champion, even with, of course, had Kimi Raikkonen's car lasted the distance at Nürburgring that year. Like, it's not actually, I mean, Montoya was actually quite good in the second half of 2003, surprisingly enough. Oh, yeah, obviously, Mesut Ozil, yeah, Mesut Ozil lives. Oh, yeah, Mesut Ozil was born in 1988. What a coincidence that is. Christian Horner, oh, yeah. Christian Horner gets about, doesn't he? He likes to get around. One moment he's at his local chip shop, and in the next moment he's down, I don't know, some club near the Milton Keynes factory, helping out with charity work, as we like to say around here. I mean, I'm just saying, whilst I've not really been much of a Daniel Ricciardo fan for the past 4 years, I do feel very sad for Daniel Ricciardo to see him in the dumps, having made such a stupid decision to leave Red Bull in 2018. I know it looked like he was still driving well when he was at Renault in 2020, but the fact of the matter is, like, his career decline since when he went to McLaren has to be one of the worst career declines I've ever seen. Like, I never saw it coming. I never thought that not only would he struggle with a steering and brake system like you get at McLaren as much as he did, but I never suspected that he would have struggled with the new front tire regulations of 2022, which made the front tires smaller and a lot more sensitive to overheating and disintegration, which not only impacted Ricciardo's qualifying performances, but also affected his race pace. And the fact that Lando Norris absolutely got the whip out, cracked the whip onto the McLaren horse and said, "Yeah, I'm going to be the main man for Woking now." And it kind of obviously caused Zach Brown a lot of embarrassment due to the fact that obviously he was paying Ricciardo at least twice as much money as he was paying Norris in terms of salary, and the fact that Ricciardo was being marketed as the team leader at Team McLaren. Yeah, I mean, Vettel, at least, I will say this, Vettel was like the best option that Aston Martin could have had in terms of drivers available in his last 2 years. Like, I'm using the same analogy as what I use for Kimi Raikkonen, that Kimi Raikkonen was an upgrade on Marcus Ericsson, Felipe Nasser, Esteban Gutierrez, maybe Felipe Nasser and Pascal Wehrlein. Vettel, likewise, was probably, well, clearly an upgrade on probably someone else that Aston Martin could have had, like Romain Grosjean, Kevin Magnussen, um, maybe Nico Hulkenberg. Although, of course, we also have to remember, I think Sebastian Vettel's 4-time champion status also was good for marketing. I mean, I think a driver lineup with Vettel and Hulkenberg would have been fantastic for Aston Martin. Like that, I mean, frankly, any driver lineup without Lance Stroll in it is an improvement, to be honest. Yeah, did Vettel get to 300 races? I swear it was only 299 though, because I think Vettel actually ran out of races, or I think, oh yeah, Vettel's engine at the 2016 Bahrain Grand Prix blew up before the start of the race, meaning that Vettel had a DNS registered for his race classification, which stands for did not start. Also, is buff now. Yeah, well, have you seen the size of Fernando Torres recently? He's absolutely massive himself. Like, I've actually seen gym training photos with Torres. Like, he is massive. His body, it's the size of his pecs and his arms are huge. Which, I mean, I mean, it's pretty impressive considering that Fernando Torres had a lot of injuries, but yeah, he's somehow managed to like rebuild his body after retirement. I mean, obviously, to be a footballer or Formula One driver, you have to be really skinny because obviously a footballer needs endurance, and of course, lighter muscles are ideal for endurance. And I think the same can be said for an F1 driver. R.I.P. Djokovic's F1 dream. Yeah, dude, he was never going to get a seat in F1. To be honest, deep down, like, I don't know why he has spent like the last 2 years as a reserve driver. Like, dude, like it's so. I mean, the thing with Djokovic, he took 3 years to win the F1 World Championship, not the F1, the Formula 2 junior title. I beg your pardon. Which, yeah, he outraced Porsche, but it just felt like it was just a case of too late. And you have to realize, you know, if Djokovic was ever going to be an F1 driver, like he needed to have found like a big sugar daddy, like we see with Lance Stroll, or like a big corporate sponsor like Zhou Guan Yu. I mean, Zhou Guan Yu. I mean, I've already repeated it. Yi Fei should have got that seat, not Zhou. And obviously, with Yi Fei being sent off to sports car racing, I think, frankly, I mean, you could argue Drugovic should have been in Zhou's seat, but for whatever reason, the sponsors Zhou have a lot of faith in Zhou's ability to become a good F1 driver, which all I can say is, well, you only have to look at the 6 years Zhou did in Formula 2 and Formula 3 to realise that he's not really very good. Man, I'm sorry. I think I think the only reason why some people will come and say things like Lance Stroll is a decent driver is because of the teammates he's had. Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, maybe Sergio Perez. Like, I think those three fan bases are probably the most inclined to say nice things about Lance Stroll because he happened to be a teammate to 3 of them, which I can't really take your word for it, I'm afraid. I mean, Antonio Giovinazzi was a decent driver, but literally everyone who's not a Kimi Raikkonen fan just saw Giovinazzi as being a very mediocre pay driver. So that's how much credit I can really place on your opinion there, I'm afraid. Like, I know it's always very fitting of people's agenda to speak well of the teammates that their favourite driver has had throughout their careers. Like, if we're going to start saying things like that, I'm going to start talking about how quick Romain Grosjean was over a qualifying lap. Yeah, Romain Grosjean was quick, you know, and he did pick up 10 podiums at Lotus in his time there in the 4 years he raced for them. You know, who else should I speak highly of? Yeah, Luca Padoa. Luca Padoa was quick at Minardi. And at the 1999 European Grand Prix, he was on course to finish 4th place. And then had it not been for a slow pit stop, he could have finished 2nd ahead of Nardo Trulli. Yeah. If we want to go down after. Oh my God. Oh my God. No. I mean, look, Luca Padoa was an okay midfield driver, but he was much better as a test driver for Ferrari, and I think his performances in late 2009 really did exemplify that Luca Padoa was frankly not really anything close to being a top driver when he stubbed in for Felipe Massa. I suppose Lance Stroll has stayed out of trouble more recently, but he's still nowhere near quick enough. It's like he's now been around for 8 years, and there's still like a 4 or 5 like half a second gap between Alonso and Stroll most of the time, which we're talking about 43-year-old Fernando Alonso. Like, how is he losing that much time to someone who is frankly really is now, I mean, a stretch what is possible for an F1 driver in this day and age. Like, I get it. Fernando Alonso is an alien and he's absolutely amazing. Yes, that's what I've got to say. Yeah, Lance Stroll in Formula 3 had his dad buy him a Prema, and he also bought all the best Ferrari mechanics for his son. And of course, oh yeah, Papa Stroll just paid off everyone in Formula 3. So, I mean, you have to go, if you go back to Lance Stroll's karting career, yeah, he was really slow. Like, no one rated him in karting. Like, Lance Stroll was not seen as a future talent at all. And frankly, you cannot turn a rotting sewer into a clean river overnight. Like, Lance Stroll is just simply not talented enough to be like to be anything more than a mediocre midfield driver at best, a lower midfield driver. I mean, obviously, I know you get people wanting Ricciardo to retire. You occasionally get people saying things about Hulkenberg and Alonso, even though they've been doing well. And then, of course, they've been begging Kevin Magnussen to leave. But then we get a driver like Lance Stroll, who is basically the poster boy for job security, because in spite of the fact that really he's outlasted practically every pay driver I have ever seen in F1. Like, Pedro Diniz only did 5 years. Pastor Maldonado did 5 years. Takuma Sato did 5 years. But Lance Stroll is going to be heading for his 9th season of Formula 1 next year, which is astronomical. It's just beyond absurd how long this guy has lasted. It's just like, okay, yeah, he's not one of the worst paid drivers you'll ever see, because, Latifi and Mazepin definitely are contenders for that award, along with someone like Gaston Massacane, Alex Young, who apparently defaulted in his payments, Yuji Ide, who was getting slapped to death by Takuma Sato, and had they had the 107% rule in place for 2006, I think Yuji Ide would have failed to qualify twice in his 4 appearances in F1. They did Mitch Evans dirty. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, damn. I think quite a few Kiwi drivers got done dirty when they were teammates with Lance Stroll. I think Nick Cassidy was another victim. Both Evans and Cassidy ended up having to go to race in Formula E and in Japan because of it, because frankly, with the reputation damage they suffered as Lance Stroll's teammate, they just have to go and find a seat in another series, which is sad. But the amount of favoritism and nepotism involved in Formula 1 is still quite disgusting. But of course, we have to realise that F1 is sort of more of a circus. It's always been something of a circus. Like, there's always been like brown envelopes being handed left, right, and center, under the table, into, I don't know, sometimes you might get owners smuggling brown envelopes down their pants and trousers and all that. Mahavir and Gunnathon had someone giving him money to race in Formula 2 because of pure delusion. I don't know who the hell thought Gunnathon was ever good enough to go to Formula 2, but I think George Revel just predicts that Lance Stroll will win a race for pure banter marks. I think it's just banter, to be honest. Like, this whole hyping of a Lance Stroll is just, I think at this point, like, everyone knows what Lance Stroll is, but frankly, we can only make fun out of his presence in the sport, because otherwise we'd all be swearing and effing and blinding like Yuki Tsunoda. Like, because I think the fact of the matter is, I think everyone has ran out of swear words about Lance Stroll years ago. Like, and the thing is, in 2020, Lance Stroll did have a decent start to the season, but then fell apart in the second half. So, really, you're wasting it. It's like arguing with a brick wall when you start talking about Lance Stroll, because we all know why he's there, and it's got nothing to do with his actual driving talent. It's a shame. Although, would Daniel Ricciardo do a better job than Lance Stroll? I think that's a big question. I think that'd be an interesting question. Like, oh yeah, there was that Dutch kid who entered about 4 Formula 2 races this year, and of course he absolutely sucked. Like, who would you rather have, Stroll or Ricciardo? Big question is, folks. Big question. Would you rather have Lance Stroll or Ricciardo in a second out of Aston Martin seat? I mean, it's a really hard one because obviously I don't know whether Ricciardo would necessarily be like beating Alonso or getting close to him, but I think Ricciardo might fetch a few extra points here and there, although it wouldn't really make that much of a difference. Oh, 2 votes went to Ricciardo. Well, at least Ricciardo doesn't completely suck, because despite the barrage of criticism, I think Ricciardo, Stroll, I mean, the problem with Lance Stroll, that I did say yesterday that he is not a solid benchmark, because as much as I know Alonso fans want to talk about how well Alonso's been doing in the past 2 years, every performance comes with an asterisk when it comes to teammate comparison, because, you know, Lance Stroll might as well be doing, I don't know, laboratory experiments using white rats at this point. One's an A-tier driver, the other's a C-tier driver. I know, I get it. Like, I know people will say things like 2 things can be true at once. You know, Alonso's an elite driver. So, Lance Stroll is a lower midfield driver and not really much better than someone like Sargeant or Zhou. I mean, the problem with Aston Martin is that it does make you wonder whether they're truly serious about contending for F1 championships if they continue employing Stroll Jr. in the team. Like, you know, there's the hypercar program with the Aston Valkyrie car. Like, Lance Stroll, I think, would be great in World Endurance Championship, because obviously qualifying doesn't really matter that much in the 6-hour, 24-hour endurance race you get. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously it's great to get pole position, but the thing is, though, you've got 6 hours of the race to complete. So, like, what advantage are you going to get? And everyone's going to be doing, like, 6 pit stops minimum, 5 or 6 pit stops. There's going to be at least 2 driver changes. So, really, like, there's very minimal, like, advantage in getting pole position. And as we all know, of course, Lance Stroll's lack of ability to do well in qualifying would pretty much not mean anything in hypercars. Or, yeah, like I said, I mean, you know, Giovinazzi has won the 24 hours on the mod with Ferrari. Okay, I know Giovinazzi was murdering Kimi in qualifying, but still, like, it's a series I could see Lance Stroll excelling at, knowing that the variables you get in endurance racing are completely different to what you get in Formula One, and the fact that Lance Stroll is the type of driver who admits that he's not that particularly bothered about, like, driving precisely, or like having like a certain set driving style like Fernando Alonso, and that he likes to adapt to the track conditions and the, I don't know, the grip or whatever. Ricciardo, I think, would probably be good, because I think Ricciardo, obviously, with just 8 or 9 races a year, I think obviously Ricciardo would be free to do whatever the hell he wants in between race weekends. You know, go on some random podcast talking, I don't know, absolute gibberish, because I have seen Ricciardo appear on podcasts and he's just, I don't even know what he's talking about. It's like he's just there talking about how he's just chilling out in somewhere like Texas, or going to Los Angeles, or going back home to Australia. Like, you know, fair enough that you're not an F1 24/7 type of person like Max Verstappen or Lando Norris, but I don't know, it just seems like Ricciardo just bailed out on Red Bull far too soon in his career. Like, you know, the way he was, like, able to really put Sebastian Vettel to the hammer in 2014 did make me sit there and think that there was a potential of a Daniel Ricciardo World Championship winner inside him, but Max Verstappen then suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and I think Daniel Ricciardo ended up throwing the towel in 4 years later. And you know what? I think I've talked long enough. Thank you for watching at Crystal Racing, and I'll see you again next time.